2, 1. Welcome to the All Ball Podcast. It is Thursday, February 24th. I am your host, Joseph Shelton, here with my co-host.
Me.
Before we begin today's show, we would like to take a minute to acknowledge the situation in Ukraine. We are praying for the people of Ukraine and their struggle against the authoritarian Russian regime. From our position, there's nothing we can do for these people but pray and urge our leaders to defend freedom around the globe from all enemies of liberty. We urge everyone in the sports world to distance themselves from all things connected to Russia, until which point where they decide to abandon their assault on freedom and independence. On today's episode, we will be previewing the second half of the NBA season and predicting which teams we believe will make the playoffs. We will also make our picks for MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Most Improved Player of the Year, and Rookie of the Year. We will do a preview of NFL free agency and go over some things concerning the top free agents. This is the All Ball Podcast. So, kind of funny. I was posting this to the YouTube last night, and it said we had a copyright strike in one of our videos.
Yes, sir.
And it was for that song, which you can barely hear on YouTube, and it was less than 30 seconds. So I don't know. But all they did was demonetize us, which, oh, okay.
That's tough.
Good one.
That's tough.
Got us.
That's funny. But my question is, do they have like a specific AI that goes through and just analyzes every YouTube video, or do they genuinely have people that do that for their job? Because if that's the case, I think they have better things to do.
Dude, I don't know. I don't know.
Kind of funny, but
And it's been the same on every YouTube video, which we purposely don't even play that song on YouTube. You could like barely hear it in the background. I don't know, whatever. That was just kind of funny.
It is what it is. Okay.
All right, so now, we're going to get into the NBA. So we haven't talked a ton about the NBA, but now that the NFL is wrapped up and we're past the All-Star break, we're going to try to focus some more on the NBA. And first, we're going to dive into who we think is in contention for the playoffs.
So are we looking at 1 through, was the last play-in spot? The 11th seed, I think. Are we looking at that? Are we just looking at possible, like, first-round home court advantages? Because really that's, like, the important part. Usually a 5th seed or lower doesn't win the championship. So are we doing 1 through 4 or basically the whole playoff picture?
We're looking at the whole playoffs.
All right. Okay, then I guess why don't we kind of do it like this here? We can highlight if you think there's going to be a lot of major like switches in the standings, teams that are currently in the playoffs that are probably going to miss the playoffs.
Right.
So I guess you want to start off with the East?
Mm-hmm. So the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference right now, well, there's actually a tie between the Heat and the Bulls.
Looks like the Bulls currently have the tiebreaker with their division standings.
Right. I would say right now, though, I would take the Heat as the favorite in the East. They're a little bit stronger of a team, I would argue, at the moment. They've been there, done that. They've been to the finals in the last couple of years. Jimmy Butler is a proven star. He proves he can get a team to the finals. They were rolling going into the break. They won 6 of their past 7. Yeah. What is your thought on the Heat?
So I think the Heat are definitely in that contender category in the East. I personally don't have them as my favorite just because basically in the NBA, the biggest stars you have, the most success you have. And that goes, the Nets really in the current NBA are the only exception, I think, just because they lack playing time and
From
injuries.
The Rockets, or not the Rockets, the Thunder from like 2012.
KD, reoccurring theme. But they were all young and inexperienced at the time. Like KD was the only really superstar on that team at that time. So basically, my point is, aside from the Nets, you look around the entire league standings, the contenders have the superstars. The playoff teams that aren't contenders have good rosters and not a superstar. So that's why I think Jimmy Butler is on the verge of that, like if you consider him a superstar, I think he's on the bottom of that list. I guess
he's a solid A player.
Right.
He's a high-end A player.
He's not an A+. He's not Giannis, LeBron, KD, Steph. He's not in that category, I don't think.
Right, but he's very good at a lot of things, too.
So that's why I personally think the Sixers are going to finish as the 1 seed as well as come out of the East. Mainly because you look at it, basically in any series besides maybe Milwaukee and maybe Brooklyn, they're going to have the best 2 players on the floor.
Right.
On top of that, they have a lot of great shooters and just great like coaching, because they kind of got that ball movement aspect like the Warriors and Spurs have always had, where they make that extra pass, but they can also hit you with the ISO game, where you give the ball to Joel in the post and let him work. You give the ball to Harden and let him, hit some step backs, floaters, whatever their offense is going to look like. But I think Tobias Harris coming in as your 3rd best player is actually a great fit, whereas he was arguably their 2nd best player the last couple of years with Ben Simmons, not living up to it in the playoffs. So I would say my top 3 contenders currently are probably the Sixers, number 1. I think Milwaukee behind them just because, they've shown last year they can win the championship. And then probably the Heat in 3rd in my top 3 contenders in the East.
The good thing for the Heat is that they've played almost entirely without Bam Adebayo. So he's missed all but 2 games. So that's good news for them. Tyler Hero started off the season really cold. He's started to play a bit better. Kyle Lowry's been playing good this season so far.
Yep.
And
that was
TJ Tucker too.
That is one of the most underrated pickups in the offseason.
Right. So I think in a 7-game series, I'd definitely be taking the Sixers. The Heat are, I feel like, a more solid team. They've been a little bit more consistent so far. So I don't know. It'll be close for the number 1 seed. At the moment, I would probably take the Heat, but it'll be close, I think.
Okay.
I agree, but like in a 7-game series, I would definitely take the Sixers.
So this is on ESPN. It looks like the Heat currently have a 9% chance to win the finals. What is that? 538. Is that a?
It's just a odds.
Okay. It's funny because everybody was so high on the Bulls, but look at the Bulls' chance to win the finals versus a lot of the next couple teams.
Yeah, the Bulls are at 0.5. So it's just the Bulls. They started off really hot. DeMar DeRozan's still playing really good, but I just don't see that happening the rest of the season. Maybe.
Yeah, dude, there's a major difference between regular season and playoff teams. Huge difference, and that goes for any sport. Where when you have good enough players that can get their own and go off every night, you can do that and be successful in the regular season. But when you go to the playoffs, you get specific matchups that counter you, and you have, basically all playoff teams besides the bottom couple seeds have good defenses and know how to game plan for you. And so you can't rely on 2 guys to just go in there and get you buckets every single possession, especially when they're not elite players. Like Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan are B to, B plus-ish players, right?
Right.
And they also got Vucevic, who hasn't had an insane season, but then again, he is that 3rd option on the team. So what do you expect?
Right.
But on top of that, none of the Bulls stars, except for maybe Lonzo, but he's missed a lot of time, and
He's injured
kind of
right now.
Caruso as well. Those are really the only two guys that commit fully on the defensive side of the ball. And
Right.
so I wouldn't be surprised if they get matched up with a Heat, with a Bulls, with a Sixers, with a Nets, that they would just get ran off the floor. Just
Yeah.
being outscored.
Lonzo and Caruso are expected to come back in mid-March. I think both those guys are really essential to the Bulls' long-term success in the postseason. I was just thinking, could you imagine this team with Jimmy Butler too? Like if he was still
right.
That would be a championship
game changer for
that
sure.
would be a championship team. But
for sure.
Anyway, they wouldn't have this team if Jimmy Butler was still on the team. So it doesn't make any sense. But yeah, so like you said, the defense is really struggling right now without Lonzo and Caruso, and even Patrick Williams. He should be back though in
for the playoffs for sure.
Well. They're all targeting around mid-March. All three of those players to come back.
Yeah. So I guess do we want to go through one by one our standing predictions?
Yeah. So let's go. Let's comment on the number 4 team right now in the East, and then we'll set up like who the home teams we think will be. The number 4th team in the East right now is the Cleveland Cavaliers. This is shocking.
No, actually. This is, dude, if there was a most improved team award, they would definitely get it.
Yes.
Unfortunately, they don't.
They're playing fantastic. And I think the most improved player is by far Darius Garland. I would by far.
Yeah, he's in consideration for sure. I guess, and we'll get to that in a little bit when we go over our awards predictions. He's not my most improved player.
Okay.
I'll leave it at that.
They also have Evan Mobley, who as a rookie is really playing well. Averaging 14, 8, and 14 and 8. And also almost a block and a half per game. That's pretty good. The Cavs defense ranks 4th in the league, which is good. They just got a lot of young players that are playing. They're just playing really aggressive basketball, and they're playing hard every single night, which is really helping them out.
So you know how there's all that talk around the NBA right now about LeBron coming back or whatever?
Yeah, I don't think they should.
When his contract expires. I was gonna say, so it depends, because LeBron isn't a free agent this offseason. I believe it's next offseason, so a year and a half from now.
He's gonna be 39.
He might be 40 by then. I don't know. Maybe 39
right now, right?
So either way, so if they could get LeBron on a cheap deal, for LeBron standards at least on a cheap deal, for less than 20 mil, because the Cavs, I believe, have quite a bit of cap space right now. I would imagine they would with how young they are. I think it's a good fit, especially when you get that leadership experience. But if he's asking for a decent amount that's going to hit your cap, maybe for a year just to bring him back and compete. But the Cavs are really building something special with how young they are, is the thing. So
LeBron was all over the place during the All-Star weekend, man. He was He was talking all over the place. But he was saying he says he's gonna play where Bronny plays. For a year probably. I mean, that's just at that point.
Yeah, I mean,
would a team draft Bronny just to have LeBron for his last year? Because as it looks now, he's good. He's not great.
No, his numbers are definitely inflated being on such a bad team, I think. That he's not... I don't think LeBron can single-handedly win you a championship anymore.
Especially at 40 or 39. No chance.
It'd be cool to see him and Bronny come together. You know what would be really cool is if they traded Anthony Davis and a couple players or whatever for the first overall pick whenever Bronny.
No, Bronny ain't gonna be the first overall pick.
I don't know.
He's right now. He's a 4-star, and he's not even in the top 20 in his class.
I guess we'll see. either way, if the Lakers were to make a move for Bronny, that'd be cool, especially because they live in Los Angeles right now. He could probably go to school at like UCLA. Then they wouldn't have to adjust and move around and whatnot. I don't know. I if I was in their shoes, I would like to stay home if I had the opportunity, right?
Yeah, he's only ranked number 34.
Okay. So I guess we'll see how good he is in college. There's always improvement, or the possibility for improvement in college. But either way, I don't know. It'd be cool to see a LeBron Cavs return, but like, I don't know.
Imagine how funny it would be if someplace like Boston drafted Bronny, and then you have to go watch LeBron play for Boston.
That would be dumb. Or like the Magic. Can you imagine if the Magic drafted him?
Or Sacramento.
Yeah, like just something dumb like that. That would suck.
Dude, I hope seeing LeBron play for Boston would be hilarious.
Okay. So I guess want to head to our standings predictions quick.
Yeah. So
and why don't we just because we're basically at the halfway point in the season, let's write them down and maybe we'll reflect on them.
Okay.
When the season's over.
Okay.
So I'll go through. Do you want me to go through mine first?
Yeah. Who are your home teams?
Okay, we'll go over the first four. So with the first overall seed, I'm going with the Sixers. I just think that Harden and Embiid's game style, I guess I'll call it, just flows so well with each other. And I think that, getting rid of that whole Ben Simmons toxicity is really just going to be like all around an improvement in just the mood and the chemistry between everybody there. So I am expecting them to finish as the 1 seed, as well as they're my favorite to come out of the East.
All right.
With the 2nd seed, just because the Heat have quite a big lead on my 3rd place team, I'm going to go with the Heat, finishing with that 2nd seed. They definitely have as big of a puncher's chance to make the finals as anybody. We've seen it in 2 seasons ago. They had enough to beat last year's champion, and so they have enough to do it. I think the biggest thing for the Heat is, well, actually one of 2 things: how Bam plays when he comes back, and if Tyler Hero would just go back to his like normal play, like how he was his rookie year, because he's that guy that his rookie season, he was that guy that you give the ball, you put the ball in his hands at the end of games and he'll get you a bucket, right? That was kind of him and Jimmy Butler going back and forth, and that's why it worked so well, and that's why they made the playoffs. But he's really just regressed since his rookie year. So if he steps it up, it's possible I might flip-flop 1 and 2, but I'm going with the Heat number 2. I think Milwaukee they've just had their foot off the gas this year. Giannis is putting up really good numbers, but he really isn't like giving it 100%, I don't think, this year. Chris Middleton's definitely also, their 2nd best player, 3rd best player, has taken a step back majorly since winning the championship. So I'm thinking possibly after, being in the All-Star game and just getting some time to relax, that he might step it up. So I'm thinking the Bucks will get I think they'll at least get a home court advantage, first round. And then at number 4, I am going to stick with the Cavs. Now, some people are probably shocked that the Bulls dropped all the way down to, at the best, the 5th seed, which is where we'll get there. So I just think the Cavs, they're hungry. They've sucked ever since LeBron left. Darius Garland hasn't had any, winning success since he's been in the league. I mean, granted, this is his 2nd season, but I don't know. When you got just such a young, confident group, I think that they're really gonna give it their all the way through to the end of the season. Now, with lack of experience and frankly lack of just talent, they're not as talented as some of these other teams quite yet, just because they're so young, that I don't think they're in my contender bubble quite yet. But for sure, I think they're going to finish with a home court game in the first round.
Hey, interesting. So I'm gonna go my number one seed. I'm sticking with the Heat because I think their way they're playing is much more consistent than that of the Bulls. Nobody's super performing great. Like they're all performing about to their levels. Tyler Hero actually, just to push out back just a little bit, he started off tough and his shooting still isn't great for the season. He's 37% on threes and 42% on field goal percentage. However, he is still averaging like 20 points per game. Is this? Hold on. I want to make sure this is right. Yeah, he's still averaging 20 points per game. About 4 assists, which isn't great, but he's starting to play a little bit better. I think he's starting to turn it around. And I think their level of play will just be a little bit more consistent than that of my second place team, which I'll take the 76ers. I think it's going to take them a minute to figure it out. Well, I do think they mesh very well. It's going to take a couple games, at least half the rest of the season, till they're really rolling. You know, if you think about it, probably 12 to 15 games till they really get rolling. So that'll take some time. And while they're figuring it out, they might lose a couple games here or there. So that's why I just think they'll be just a little bit less consistent than the Heat the rest of the season. My third team, I will agree with you. I'm going to take the Bucks. They're not that terribly far behind the Heat and 76ers. So I think, and they're only one game, not even a full game behind the Cavs. They're actually technically tied with the Cavs because they have 36 wins. So they have one more win and one less loss. So they're technically tied. And then for my 4 seed, I am going to take the Bulls. They're only like 2.5 games ahead of the Cavs, but they have a little bit more veteran presence, which can be good or bad in the regular season. But I'm going to stick them to stay with the 4th seed.
Okay, so we have our home court teams. I guess are the Heat are your favorite, right?
To
be make it out of the East.
No, okay, my favorite to make it out of the East is still the 76ers. But my favorite to get the number 1 seed is the Heat.
Then I will move into we want to go all the way till the play-in game or just finish off the 8th seed right now?
Let's get the 10.
Okay. So coming in with my 5th seed, I'm going with the hottest team in the NBA. I was really I don't know. I don't know if I want to put him as the 4th or 5th seed. I'm going to put him as the 5th seed now. I'm going with the Celtics. Since the start of February, they've had the best record in the NBA. On top of that, Tatum and Jaylen Brown are actually playing relatively decent, together. Usually that's kind of been the thing where one has a hot night, one doesn't do anything, and so their game style doesn't fit very well. But they've actually been playing both collectively pretty well as of recent. Only reason that I don't think that they're in my contender bubble is, well, their big men kind of blow. They don't really have a big defensive presence in the paint, as well as like a guy who can just take over a game from that post spot. So that's why I don't think they're better than any of the 4 teams I put above them. So I got the Celtics in at 5. So number 6, finally I'm gonna put the Bulls. Now it's kind of a big drop off from the 2nd seed all the way down. But again, by the end of the year, especially like before the playoffs start, defense is key because a lot of your players that put up so many minutes during the regular season are going to be gassed, especially when all they do is score. So that's why I'm expecting DeMar DeRozan and possibly Zach LaVine to take a step back, especially with DeMar DeRozan isn't a young guy. It's not like he can go out there and give you 35 minutes a game and put up close to 30 points a game. Like that's not, especially with how his play style is too. Like fadeaways, I don't know, are decently tiring, I would say, right? Rather than just a straight up jumper or getting layups. And so I expect him to take some little step back by the end of the season and not be in this MVP conversation anymore, because quite literally he's in the MVP conversation for sure.
Right. Yeah.
So I got the Bulls, who are just a little injury riddled, and I think a little. I don't want to say they're too old, but like they're not in their prime right now, and so I'm thinking they're going to take a little bit of a step back, at least. So I have the Bulls finishing as the 6th seed right now. 7th through 11th seed, I'm just going to go off the rip because I don't think it's really important or as important. So for the sake,
we got like 20 minutes left. So, and we haven't gotten to the Western Conference yet. Just letting you know.
Okay. So,
3, 2.
So I'm just going to kind of.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go fast. So the bottom couple seeds, I'm basically just going to go where I think in the standings, I think for the most part are going to look very, very similar. So I got the Raptors 7th. They just have a decent lead on every other team in the East right now. I'm going to go with the Hawks, number 8. They were in the Eastern Conference Championship last year, so they've shown that they do have the ability to be a good team. Just really inconsistent on offense, but that's kind of Trae Young's offense. He takes dumb shots, and sometimes they go in, sometimes they don't. I have the Hornets, who are just inexperienced. They're young, decent roster, but they're not there quite yet. And then I have the Nets falling all the way to the bottom as the play-in team. When you don't have your stars playing like at all, I don't see you winning games. Like I think they have the worst record over the last month for sure. So I think the Nets are going to at least have a chance to make the playoffs. Just depends on how KD, Kyrie, and Ben Simmons play together. So I have them making the last play-in game.
All right. Yeah. So you said pretty much quite a bit of it. I'm going to take the Cavs at number 5 because I had them dropping out. I'm going to take Boston at 6. I like Toronto at 7. I like Charlotte to move up 1 to 8. Brooklyn to probably 9, I would say. I don't know if they're going to drop all the way down. And then I'll keep the Hawks where they are currently at 10. So that's my feeling on it. So moving on to the Western Conference, the Suns are kind of running away with it now. The Warriors had a really hot start. They've kind of regressed. We talked about this before. Ever since like Curry got the record and then Clay's been back, they've been on and off, just getting used to each other again. Curry was kind of in a slump for a little bit. I think that'll be fixed. But the Suns have opened up quite a lead, 6.5 games on the Warriors. Memphis has hung in there. I don't think we saw that coming. I mean, we both were. Yeah. Where we were wrong on that. The first time we talked about NBA rankings, we were like, I don't see the Grizzlies being up here, and they're still sticking there, so good on them. Right. Yeah, we took the L on that one, so good on them. The Jazz, still a really solid team. I really like the Jazz. I like Donovan Mitchell. Rudy Gobert, obviously, he does what he does. The Mavericks are up to the 5th seed this year. This is the highest they've been in a while. Luka, obviously playing phenomenal as always. He pretty much carries. They've traded Porzingis now, which that just never really worked out like I thought it would.
Yeah, about the Porzingis thing, he really just didn't fit very well. So I'm okay with that trade.
It's
Davis Bertans is a kind of a good fit with Luka. So
right, I always feel like Porzingis should be better than he is because he was really good in that time with the
Knicks.
The Knicks, but he's just kind of fallen off a little bit. So I don't know. Is it injuries pile up and he's a tall, big man? Luka's averaging 27 points per game, 9.2 rebounds per game, and 9 assists per game. So he's playing phenomenally as always. He's still only 22. Isn't that insane?
Yeah, he's easily a top 10 player in today's game and borderline top 5.
Good.
And
so good. So I see them staying up there. The Nuggets, Jokic still having a good season, not quite as good as last year in his MVP season, but he's still playing well. So on that top 6 playoff teams, who do you like? Obviously the Suns.
So my rankings are very similar to yours. I think top 3 were in agreement: Suns, Warriors, Grizzlies. So I have the Nuggets, who are also playing very well as of recent. And they
that
also
wasn't my rankings. That was just I was just saying where they were.
Okay. Either way, those are the top 3 teams for sure. Nuggets, I think, have a chance to make the championship this year. I would actually put them. I don't think they're going to finish above the Grizzlies or Warriors, but I would honestly maybe put them above, for sure, the Grizzlies, possibly the Warriors in that contention talk, just because Jokic is like such a dynamic player on offense, how he sets everybody up. They're going to get Jamal Murray back, hopefully by the playoffs start, which is going to be huge. So I think watch out for the Nuggets. Yeah, there's not really much else to add, I think, in the West. I think the West is pretty predictable this year for sure.
Pretty well sorted.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be shocked if Phoenix doesn't come out of the West.
I don't know.
Actually, I don't know if I'd be shocked. I would be surprised.
Yeah, I would. I honestly, usually you bet the field, right? But I would say more people are going to be betting the Suns than the field this year.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's fairly obvious that they're the best team in the West.
The teams that could have a chance, the Jazz. Maybe the Nuggets with Jokic, but I think they just have too much for them. I think the Jazz are deeper overall than the Nuggets.
It sucks they lost Joe Ingles, the Jazz. That sucks.
Yeah, it does. You got to say, because with Steph and Clay together, you never know. You really never know. Like, they could just go nuclear in a series. Like when Steph lost Clay and Durant in that one series against the Blazers, and he just averaged like 45 a game.
Right.
And won it damn near on his own. So you never know about that. So the Warriors got a chance. I don't know if the Grizzlies have a chance against the Phoenix.
Right.
They're kind of young. But then we've been underrating the Grizzlies all year, so maybe that's on us. Maybe that's personal bias we have against Memphis.
But I wouldn't be mad with the Grizzlies in the finals. That'd be cool. But like, I just don't think they have enough yet.
No. So I think my home teams are in this order. Actually, I kind of like the order they're in right now. Phoenix, Golden State, Memphis, Utah. I kind of like that. Plus, they're a little bit more spaced out than the teams. The teams in the East are really close together. I kind of like that order. I think Dallas could have a chance to sneak in there for the 4th. I think they would have the best chance at getting in there. Everybody else, though, is just kind of like 5 games back at that point. And it's possible to make up 5 games, but it's very possible. It's tough. So I would say the top 4 is probably what it is, and I would allow for the possibility that Dallas could get the 4th seed, but right now I'm just going to stick with those.
Okay. I agree with the top 3. I have the Nuggets finishing as the 4th seed. And then basically the rest of the West, I think, is irrelevant except maybe the Jazz. I will say this. I think the 10 teams that are in the playoff and above right now are the 10 teams that are going to make it. So I'll just
the Spurs, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. The Spurs maybe DeJounte Murray can carry them, but I think the Blazers eventually will get Dame back.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Because he's basically missed 75% of the season.
But I don't think any of those teams, like the Timberwolves, the Clippers just like, I don't know. Like if they got their guys back, maybe.
Nah, for now I'm going to throw them out of my window. I don't know what's up with them. I think they are good, well coached, but like.
I think, like, yeah, okay. Like, to make a run at the championship, like, the last 2 teams here, the Lakers and the Blazers, and even Minnesota, they have no shot. No shot to make the championship. I think the play-in tournament's kind of stupid.
Yeah, I don't like it.
LA's got the Lakers have 0% chance to make the finals, as do I feel like the Blazers. Hate to say it, I know you're a Blazers fan, but like he's just zero chance.
Well, right. It's funny that they added playoff teams because I've always been in favor of them decreasing the playoff teams.
Right.
Just to make the rounds more important, because really it's just the last 2 rounds that are like actually entertaining, in my opinion. So it's kind of funny that they expanded rather than keeping it shorter.
This. Memphis versus either LA team tomorrow, and Memphis is the third seed. Does that go 5 games? I don't think it does.
Maybe. I think the Lakers have a shot to win a couple rounds, but I'd be very shocked if they made the finals.
I don't think they have a shot. Dude.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on when AD comes back and how they play together. So that's why I'm not ruling them out. They literally won the championship like 2 years ago. So it just.
Yeah, but what are the odds that AD comes back? Like, what are the odds he's healthy for the playoffs? He'll probably come back, but then probably
get hurt. He's gonna be rested. That's for sure.
Yeah, until he gets hurt again. That guy may be the most injury-prone superstar I've ever seen in any sport.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
I can agree.
A couple years ago, people were saying he was the best player in basketball. But he just cannot stay healthy.
He just needs to give time off the court. Like, he's good enough to not have to, but if he really wants to cement himself as a top player, I think he has to. Okay, so you want to move on?
Well, yeah, I don't know. I just like bashing on the Lakers, too, right now, because they're so bad. And then they didn't make a trade at the deadline. LeBron's not engaged. I don't know. They're a disaster. I just like bashing on the Lakers right now. I think it's funny.
Okay, you want to move on to our awards picks quick?
Yes, we should do that. Okay, so you go first. Who do you got for your MVP? Because it's between two for me.
For sure, I'm going with Joel Embiid. I just think statistically he's having the best season this year. You could look at Jokic's PER and just Giannis's all-around stats, but I think Embiid, with what he's been working with, like, imagine if the Sixers didn't have Embiid. Then again, I guess you could say that for Jokic and Giannis. I guess you could say that. Or John Morant as well. He's also he's up there. But, no, he's averaging the most points in the game this year. He's averaging well over 10 rebounds. He's a defensive monster in the paint. And I just think he's going to, with how much attention's going to have to go on to Harden, I just expect his numbers to at least stay there, if not go up. So I have Embiid win the MVP.
My prediction for MVP is Joel Embiid. Who I would vote for is Chris Paul. Because Chris Paul, like, he'll never win it because he's never going to have the stats, right? He's only averaging 15 points per game, 10 assists, 5 rebounds. But he's just like, you look at the difference between before he was on that team to now him being on that team, he means everything to them. And yet, like, yeah, they have a lot of talented players. He might not even be the most talented player on that team. Like, you could argue Booker is a better, like, more talented player. But Chris Paul is just so valuable to that organization and to them winning games and they're the best team by far right now. So he would be my pick, but he's never going to win it because, like, he just doesn't have the stats for it. So my prediction is as well with you, Embiid.
So we'll move into defensive player, I think, next. I think that's kind of the second most, the biggest one. I'm going to go with Giannis just because I think he's the only player in the current NBA that can guard all 5 positions, like, very successfully. He's fast enough to guard them, shifty point guards, but he's big enough to guard the elite big men. Like, he's had a number on Embiid some games this year already. So I think, a lot of metrics point to, like, Rudy Gobert and people that get a lot of blocks. But I think Giannis, just all around being able to cover everybody on the court, it would be my current defensive player of the year.
All right. So my pick for defensive player of the year would be Draymond Green. I believe Draymond Green is having a real kind of resurgence this year compared to the last couple years. He's been down. He's another guy like Giannis. He can cover basically all 5 positions on the floor. he's a guy that just takes up space. Like Giannis does similar things too. He just takes up space and like blocks lanes and gets in the way of stuff. And so the reason this year I would give the edge to Draymond over Giannis is I think he's playing just a little bit better, and his basketball IQ is so high at this point. Like, you're not gonna be able to do something that Draymond hasn't seen before. It's kind of like, so we talk about it with quarterbacks a lot. Draymond Green's really the quarterback of not only that team, but especially that defense, because he's just gonna be able to see everything before it happens. So I would go with Draymond Green for defense.
Yeah, it's a good pick. Most improved, you already highlighted on yours, Darius Garland. That's a good pick. It might be the narrative that everybody's leaning towards, but when you just look at pure statistical improvement, I'm going Ja Morant.
Okay.
He's up like I think 8 points per game this year versus last year. He has his team who missed the playoffs. No, they didn't. They were the 8th seed last year, but who almost missed the playoffs last year as a top 3 seed in, I think, the better conference. So I think for sure I'm going to go Ja Morant, especially I don't see the Grizzlies even close to a playoff team if he's not there.
I would agree with that.
So we'll go Ja Morant.
So yeah, mine is Darius Garland. That's a great argument for Ja Morant. But Darius Garland, like he was really a role player last year, and now he's the number one option on a really good Cavs team. So that's why I would put him in there. It's as much of stats as it is just like impact on the team. Ja Morant didn't take a step up within that team. Like he was the guy last year. He's the guy this year.
Okay.
Yeah, he's playing a lot better. But Darius Garland was definitely not the guy last year, and now he really is. So
Colin Sexton getting injured, I think, definitely helped him move up in the team, as well as like take that point guard, offensive leader position. So that's a good argument for sure. Rookie of the year, I think we agree on this one.
Yeah,
and I don't think it's really close.
No.
Who do you think it is?
Mobley.
Yeah, okay.
Evan Mobley. Like, I think that's what everybody thinks right now. He's probably the number two or three option on that Cavs team. He's playing really well. Yeah. I mean, not much else to say about it, but he's playing very mature, I think, for his first season.
The fact that he's developing a jumper as well is, I think, huge for that offense and him especially. And the impact he has on defense, just blocking shots and getting boards, I think he's definitely my rookie of the year for sure.
Right. A lot of rookies come in just playing like they rely on high energy to make an impact in their first season. Like that's what Ja Morant did. He was just an extremely high energy, like all over the court player. Last two here. Sixth man of the year.
I didn't put that one down. No, okay. You go. I'll think of something.
So I know you said he mentioned his struggles, but I got to go with Tyler Hero. He's still averaging 20 points a game. When he's on the court, he's like first or second option. We've seen it in the past. He's one of those guys that can go out and get a bucket at any point. I'm actually surprised he's not starting. I guess it's just like in their lineup, it's more advantageous for him to come off the bench, but yeah.
Okay. Let me see here.
If you don't got one, that's fine. We can go to Coach of the Year.
You can, move on. I'll figure something out.
Right. Coach of the Year. So I got Taylor Jenkins, the coach for the Grizzlies. Grizzlies have really turned it around this year. They're playing really good basketball. Like we said, we've underrated them this whole time. But I think they're really good. Quick, we got like 10 seconds left, so go ahead if you got something.
JB Bickerstaff for the Cavs, I think, is mine, just because of the improvement for sure. But
all right, so that's all we're gonna do for this week. Sorry we didn't have time to get to NFL free agency. We're gonna have a whole episode on that coming soon, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, make sure to subscribe on YouTube and on iTunes and Spotify. Leave a rating. Check us out on Instagram and TikTok, and have a good weekend.
Bye.